What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. It seems like Capcom has really been trying to breathe new life into some of their older franchises to remind us that not only do we enjoy them, but they themselves as a studio actually have a lot of love for these older style games as well. This project especially is a great display of just the amount of passion that Capcom and the community still has for Street Fighter. We're getting a collection of 12 different games here. Now, if you're not really experienced with this entire series, it might look like just a bunch of different versions of the same game, but it's not really like that. Each time there was a new re-release of a Street Fighter game, they'd always try and overhaul some major aspect of it by adding in different characters, balancing out certain moves, or in certain cases, introducing stuff like specials. Yes, that's right. By playing through these games in sequential order, it's kind of fascinating because not only are they all fun in quite different ways, but you can see how fighting games as a genre slowly developed. It's fascinating to see the really raw roots of the first Street Fighter that only had 2 characters and, let's face it, was pretty raw, all the way up to the more modern stuff that has fluid animations and really good movesets. This collection is absolutely stellar, but I feel like it's definitely only for the most hardcore of Street Fighter fans. The reason why I say that is because these games are actually pretty tough. Now, I'm pretty experienced at these style of games, and honestly, I'm kicking a lot of butt online, but I can tell this is aimed for the people who have already been playing them for years and just want the best version of them. Now, the reason why I say that is because, in general, these games all play very, very fast, especially if you've only tried their earlier console versions. This collection we're getting here packages together the ultimate editions of all these, which is basically the arcade versions. People seem to forget this, but originally, if you were taking a game from the arcade to home consoles, there was some problems with that. The hardware was not powerful enough to try and handle not just the graphics, but just trying to handle some of the big super moves and try and keep the frame rate locked at a good pace. Well, here, we're finally getting the truly perfect versions of these we always wanted, especially some of the rarer games in this set. It's really cool to try and go back and see some of the games like Double Impact that are heavily overlooked get the respect they deserve. Now, what's really special about this is the fact that they did try and make this very welcoming to players. What they've implemented here is sort of trying to make it where it could be as accessible as possible to somebody in case you're not an absolute Street Fighter master. Since these are the arcade versions being ported over, there isn't a typical options menu, meaning you can't exactly mess with buttons and stuff. Instead, before you go into the game, you can affect certain stuff that would typically be built into an arcade cabinet, making it where the enemies you face are going to be harder or easier, or in certain games, making it where you'll block automatically. Now, these are some nice touches, and I especially enjoyed it because it made it where if I wanted to try and warm up to a particular game and practice combos that I wasn't exactly used to yet, it was so helpful to be able to turn the difficulty way down and then practice, getting a chance to stretch my legs and learn the pacing of different combat styles. Because while if you aren't experienced with this genre, it can look like all these games are quite similar, they're not. Some of them have super moves that work completely different from a game that just came out a couple years before it. Having them all side by side on the same menu can sort of mislead you to the idea that these are just the same game over and over again. They can be incredibly diverse and really challenge you to try and learn so many different aspects of fighting games. That's really what I love most about this, is that it really shines a spotlight on how magnificent this series is and how much things have evolved over the decades. So let's talk about something specifically, which is the different graphic options. I feel like this is the thing that kind of seems like it's trying to sell itself, and it's not that big of a deal, but I did find it, well, pretty interesting in general. You can switch it so that you can have different styles of of graphics and have it in a typical shrunken down screen, which is how you're probably used to it if you were playing this on an arcade cabinet, slightly blown up, and put different filters on it to make it look like an arcade screen, a TV, or put no filter at all. Personally, as somebody who did play a lot of this stuff 1/4 at a time back in the day, it was cool to be able to put on the arcade filter and give it that ever so slightly screen door appearance to it. This is a detail that I think is really cool and shows the fact that they like these games more than the average person, but it's not really necessary. I think it was just a cool added touch, but let's be realistic here. As soon as you figure out the one setting you like, you're probably never ever gonna mess with this again. Alright, let's talk about what's really most important here, and the thing you probably are really trying to hear about, which is the online play. If you're really into Street Fighter, the competitive scene is a big part of what's kept this community alive for years and years and years. Well, since I'm playing this game before it comes out, I was only able to test it against other reviewers, but from my research, it seems like the servers are quite stable, making it very easy to pull off long combos, get big hits, and time your blocks just right. I was a little bit worried because some Capcom games are a little bit hit and miss as to how fluid the servers are, making it where if you end up just making the tiniest mistake, the game can hitch up and screw you over completely, costing you a round. Well, I do want to say, while these do run fantastic, I have a strong internet connection, and I noticed that when I was facing people who don't necessarily have as good a bandwidth, there was a weird thing where the screen would freeze for milliseconds here and there to try and let them catch up, which makes me think that the server is constantly trying to bounce ping it back and forth between your individual consoles. That way it can keep track of just where you're at. So this did screw me up a couple times, so I do have to say, if you do not have a great internet connection, this might be a little bit impossible for you to play, because while the servers are strong, it doesn't seem like it's very adapted to low latency play. If you are not ready to really put on some high, fast internet, you're not going to be playing at all. Let's face it, this is made for a certain audience, and it's not exactly people with slower internet. From my hours of trying it though, I can say I never had a crash, I always managed to get into lobbies pretty efficiently, and it seems like this works pretty well. I did find it a bit odd that you can only play with 4 of the 12 games in this collection online. Now, I understand that these are probably the best of the games in the collection, but if I wanted to play with a friend of mine in a worse version of Street Fighter 2, I kinda dislike that I'm not able to do that. Okay, so the last thing I really want to focus on here is something that I expected would just be kind of lame, but is interesting. This collection features a special extra option called Museum Mode. Now, these type of things are normally really boring and just kind of, well, full of some unused art, nothing truly special, but this Museum Mode stands out because it shows a bunch of unreleased aspects of these games, highlighting their development and really kind of opening my eyes to just how different this game was before it came out. See, I didn't know this, but apparently back in the day, the first version of Street Fighter that was in arcades was designed to have these huge buttons that you would have to punch as hard as you could to do different strengths of punching and kicking. That's how you did combos and stuff, and it was meant to be physically exhausting, and that's such a weird concept. And now I can not only hear about it, not only play gameplay of it, but see the original art that the first creators of this entire series put down on paper. And this goes through the entire franchise, giving us a very rare behind-the-scenes look at all sorts of different aspects of this amazing, amazing franchise. I've always liked Street Fighter a bit, but this really kind of opened up my eyes even more to just how much fun this game is, how great this series is, and how much the developers truly care of making it magnificent. Okay, so we've heard some good and a little bit of bad, but let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection a 9.5 out of 10. You know what? Just for my own enjoyment, I'm going to end this video by bragging a tiny bit. I beat up a ton of people online. That was really, really fun. But my favorite was, I ended up going against a bunch of IGN employees during one point when I was testing out the online. And yeah, I flawlessed a bunch of those dudes. So if any of you IGN employees happen to see this, yeah, it was been really fun fighting you. But yeah, better luck next time. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. This has been DreamcastGuy with another review. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.